For 93 minutes, Egypt believed they had done everything right. They had scored, they had defended, they had absorbed Argentina's best attacks, denied Messi from the penalty spot, and built a 2-goal lead that was supposed to be sufficient to eliminate the defending world champions and produce the greatest result in Egyptian football history. And then the final whistle blew, and Argentina had won 3-2, and nobody was talking about the football anymore. Hossam Hassan, Egypt's head coach, walked into the post-match press conference and said something that stopped the room. Life is unfair. The world is unfair. But why isn't there any fairness in sports? I do not want to try to put it nicely here with beautiful wording. We have been treated unfairly today. We have suffered injustice. And then he went further. He said the cup is directed towards Argentina. He said there seemed to be pressures from the Argentine side on the outcome. He said it was not hard luck, it was something else. Something he could not accept with the diplomatic language that press conferences usually demand. And the Egyptian Football Association, the following morning, filed a formal complaint with FIFA. Not a statement, not a social media post, a formal, documented, institutional complaint, accusing French referee François Letexier and his assistants of serious refereeing mistakes and double standards, accusing them, in writing, of causing Egypt to lose the match and leave the World Cup. That complaint is the reason this story is bigger than one football match. Because when a national federation files a formal complaint after a defeat at the World Cup, they are not simply expressing frustration. They are making a legal and institutional argument that something happened that the sport's own rules were not properly applied to address. And the questions that Egypt's complaint raises are questions that the wider football world, in the hours since the final whistle in Atlanta, has not been able to dismiss. To understand why, you need to understand what happened inside 93 minutes of football in Atlanta Stadium on July 7, 2026. Egypt arrived at this match as genuine underdogs. Argentina were the defending world champions, tournament favorites in many assessments, and the team containing Lionel Messi, whose 8 goals going into the match made him the leading scorer of the entire tournament. The expectation from most of the football world was that Argentina would win, probably comfortably, and advance to a quarterfinal against Switzerland. But Egypt had a plan, and for 67 minutes, that plan worked. Mostafa Shubir, their goalkeeper, saved a Messi penalty in the 21st minute, and then made multiple other crucial interventions throughout the opening period. The Egyptian defensive structure absorbed Argentine pressure and transitioned with pace and purpose on the counterattack. When Yasser Ibrahim headed them into the lead in the 15th minute, it was not a lucky goal. It was the direct product of a set-piece routine that Egypt had prepared and executed with professional precision. And then came the 62nd minute, and the moment that changed everything. Marwan Atia broke forward from Egypt's half. His run produced the ball being played to Mustafa Zico, who finished with composure to make it 2-0. The Egyptian celebrations that followed were the celebrations of a team that had done the extraordinary and were 2 goals from completing it. They lasted approximately 30 seconds. VAR intervened. The review process identified a foul by Marwan Atia on Lisandro Martinez at the beginning of the move that led to the goal. Not near the goal, not in the area. At the start of the attacking phase of play, in Argentina's half of the pitch, where Atia had stepped on Martinez's foot as he attempted to dispossess him. The foul had occurred far from goal. Multiple Argentine players had touched the ball between the foul and Zico's finish. The move had covered most of the length of the pitch. But under the laws of the game, as interpreted by the VAR protocol, an attacking phase of play that begins with a foul can have a subsequent goal disallowed. The foul starts the phase. If the phase ends in a goal, VAR has the authority to review. The goal was disallowed. Former England goalkeeper Rob Green, analyzing the decision live on Fox Sports broadcast, was unambiguous. Surely, this is not within VAR's realm to review this. It's a full length of the pitch away. Former England captain Alan Shearer posted on social media in real time. Either both are fouls or neither is. But they told us they won't re-referee. Fox Sports' own officiating expert Dr. Joe Mochnick offered the opposite view. He said a foul in the attacking phase of play, which leads to a goal or possession by the team that scores a goal, can result in the goal being disallowed. He said the decision was defensible under the laws of the game. 2 qualified analysts, 2 completely opposing interpretations of the same decision under the same rulebook, watching the same footage in the same broadcast booth. That gap between 2 legitimate expert interpretations of whether the decision was correct is the gap in which Egypt's complaint exists. It is not a gap manufactured by frustration or grievance. It is a genuine interpretive ambiguity at the heart of how VAR's authority is defined, about how far back into a phase of play the review process is permitted to reach, and about whether a decision that was not visible enough for the on-field referee to catch in real time should be considered within VAR's remit, simply because the technology was capable of detecting it. But that was not the end of the controversy, because what happened after Zico scored the legitimate second goal, the one VAR did allow to stand in the 67th minute, produced the second argument that Egypt's federation has placed at the center of its formal complaint. Hamdi Fathi went down inside Argentina's penalty area after a challenge from Alexis McAllister. Egypt's players appealed immediately. The referee waved play on. VAR did not recommend a review. Ian Wright, watching on ITV, said what his analysis suggested. If you're going to pull it back for Argentina on the edge of the box to disallow a goal, you have to pull it back for this one with Mo Salah. He's been caught. Whatever we say, it might be minimal. He's been caught. And then they go up the other end. And that is precisely what happened. Argentina went up the other end. A counterattack developed from the moment the penalty appeal was waved away. Lautaro Martinez combined with Enzo Fernandez. Fernandez headed the ball into the net in the 92nd minute. 3-2, Argentina winning. Egypt had gone from 2-0 up to 2-3 down in 13 minutes. The same VAR system that had reached back the length of a football pitch to disallow their goal had declined to check the challenge that preceded Argentina's winner. Former Liverpool defender Jamie Carragher captured the symmetry that Egypt's players were processing in real time. If that was in the Premier League, La Liga, or Serie A, he said, it would have been a goal even after VAR review. The Egyptian players surrounded the referee after the final whistle. Mostafa Zico, the man whose goal had been disallowed, said directly to cameras that it was a rigged game. Not a careful statement. The immediate, unfiltered reaction of an athlete who believed something had been taken from him that he deserved to keep. The Egyptian Football Association's formal statement, released the following morning, was more measured in its language, but identical in its substance. The EFA cannot remain silent regarding the refereeing decisions witnessed during the match against Argentina, as well as the failure to make appropriate use of the video assistant referee system. Several key incidents raised serious concerns and left profound questions about the consistency and fairness of decisions that directly influence the course of the game. This underlines the importance of maintaining the highest standards of integrity, fairness, and transparency in match officiating, particularly in a competition of the stature and significance of the FIFA World Cup 2026. EFA President Hani Abarita submitted a formal complaint against Letexier and his assistants directly to FIFA. The federation alleged double standards. They alleged that the inconsistency between how VAR treated Egypt's disallowed goal and how it treated the penalty appeal before Argentina's winner represented a fundamental failure of the system's stated purpose. Hassan, meanwhile, did not stop at the institutional language. He said something else in the press conference that the football world noticed immediately. He said Egypt had formally objected to the appointment of Letexier before the match, specifically because he is French, and because Argentina had beaten France in the 2022 World Cup final. Hassan said he believed that connection created an environment in which pressure on the referee was possible, and in which the outcome might be influenced. He did not present evidence of any wrongdoing. He stated it as his belief. But the statement was specific enough that it became the most discussed element of the post-match press conference. There is another dimension to what Hassan said that requires careful handling. He said it is all about money. He said FIFA wanted Messi to stay in the tournament. He said the world champion received support at every level. These are serious allegations. They are his personal views, expressed under enormous emotional pressure, immediately after what he believed was an unjust defeat. They are not supported by evidence of deliberate manipulation. They are the expression of a coach who watched his team lead 2-0 in a round of 16 match and lose 3-2, and who attributes that outcome to forces that he believes went beyond the football on the pitch. Whether those forces existed as Hassan described them is something that FIFA's own processes will need to address if the formal complaint is taken seriously. What can be said with certainty, because it is documented and verifiable, is this. The VAR decision to disallow Zico's goal was contested by multiple qualified former officials and analysts in real time. The failure to review the McAllister challenge before Argentina's winner was questioned by multiple qualified former players on major broadcasts. The two decisions, taken together, produce the specific pattern of outcomes that Egypt's complaint describes. And the complaints themselves, the coach's press conference, the federation's formal statement, the players' immediate reactions, are all on record, and will remain so regardless of how FIFA responds. Professor Simon Chadwick, a leading sport industry expert, addressed the structural problem this match revealed in an interview with Al Jazeera. A logical solution to the VAR issue, he said, would be for fans and viewers to listen to an assessment of the alleged offense, hear the various arguments, and have a clear insight into the basis for a decision. That transparency does not currently exist. When VAR makes a decision, the public, the players, and the coaches receive the outcome. They do not receive the reasoning. They do not hear the conversation between the VAR officials and the on-field referee. They do not have access to the criteria that determine why one incident is reviewed and another is not. They are given a result and told it is correct. And when the result, as Egypt believes about the result in Atlanta, does not correspond to what the people most directly affected believe they witnessed, the absence of transparency becomes the problem itself, not the decision. The inability to understand how the decision was reached. This is not a new problem for football. Refereeing controversies have defined World Cup matches throughout the tournament's history. The hand of God in 1986. The disallowed goal in the 2010 England vs. Germany round of 16. The Frank Lampard goal that crossed the line and wasn't given. The sport has always produced moments where the decision made and the decision expected diverged. And the divergence became the story. What has changed with VAR is the expectation attached to technology. VAR was introduced with a specific promise that the most consequential errors, the ones that change matches and eliminate teams, would be caught and corrected by a system that has access to information no human observer can process in real time. The promise was accuracy. The promise was consistency. The promise was fairness. When that promise appears not to have been delivered, in a match as visible and significant as Argentina versus Egypt at the 2026 World Cup, the disappointment is not simply about the result. It is about the technology itself. About whether the system that was supposed to remove doubt has instead simply relocated it, from the moment of the decision to the aftermath of the decision, where it spreads further and faster and more damagingly than any individual refereeing error ever could. Mohamed Salah, who may have played his last game for Egypt at a World Cup, walked into the dressing room after the final whistle and gathered his teammates. He did not make public accusations. He gathered the group and spoke. According to Egypt's reserve goalkeeper Mohamed Allah, who shared what Salah had said, he told them, "Hard luck, it's over, it's God's decree, and what he willed happened." That is the response of a captain who has experienced enough of football's injustices to understand that some things cannot be resolved by argument or complaint. That the only honest response is to acknowledge what happened, grieve it, and eventually move past it. But Egypt's federation has decided not to move past it without placing something on record. Without saying formally and institutionally that what happened in Atlanta on July 7, 2026 was not acceptable and should not be treated as simply the normal outcome of a competitive football match. Argentina are in the quarterfinals. Messi has 8 goals. The tournament continues, and Egypt's complaint sits on a desk in Zurich, waiting for a response from an organization that is also the body responsible for the system the complaint is questioning. Asking whether the standard it applies is consistent and fair, and whether the tools it has created are delivering the outcome they were built to deliver. That question will outlast this tournament. It will outlast Argentina's campaign, whether it ends in the quarterfinal or in the final. It will outlast Messi's final World Cup, whenever that moment comes. It will outlast the memories of the 3 goals in 13 minutes that produced one of the great comebacks the tournament has seen. What it may not outlast if no satisfactory answer is provided is something more fragile and more essential than any of those things. The belief of the people who play the game and the people who watch it, and the nations that send their teams to compete in it. That the outcome is determined by what happens on the pitch, and by that alone. Perhaps Egypt didn't only lose a football match. Perhaps in the hours and days after the final whistle in Atlanta, football itself lost something much harder to recover. Trust. What do you think? Was this simply another controversial refereeing performance? Or was it the beginning of a much bigger FIFA debate?